All right, so wish I'd gotten this a little more faster to you guys, but I gave you an advanced Skeleton 5 zip file. I think it's the wrong version, but it doesn't really matter. I'm not going to use it. If you double click on that and open it, you'll see inside of there that you get an install right here. And you also see an install text. And I think if you zoom in on that, where you want it to be, it doesn't really matter where the folder actually sits. It just means that you want it to be where you can find it. Literally, it just tells you once you have it, you're just going to drag and drop Maya to any viewport, right? So that's top, front, side, perspective, and it'll just put itself on the shelf. And so, it's really easy to install. So, best way is just kind of have it sort of sitting on the side like this. Go to Maya, and then maybe make it a little bit small. And then you're just going to take this install me. You're just going to drag it, right? Sorry. You're just going to drag it over and drop it into one of your windows or your viewports, and it'll install. And I don't want to do it because it's going to put two versions on there, and I don't want to let go. But once you let go, it just sort of pops in, and then you'll have Skeleton 5. Pretty straightforward, that process. So I put that Skeleton 5 zip folder into the on the Canvas page. So go ahead and grab that and install that. The next step is, I'm not going to use any of these other things, but we'll talk about these are some selectors and stuff. Let's not worry about that. The main one's this 5 icon, and that's the one that we're using to get into the parts of the tool that we're working with today. I went through my character. I set up the eyes, and I gave them names, and there's nothing else in the scene, so there's nothing else here. The other thing to watch out for is that let me turn on my grid. Just make sure that when you start this, you want your character up onto the floor. If you don't do this, it's going to mess with your IKHandle controls, and they'll look a little bit weird. So it's good to just get in there and just really get that thing lined up using the side view to just line the feet up with the floor. That's the main thing there. Just make sure you get that way. Now that's going to add in some values, so just watch out for that. Now I can freeze transformations on those. It's one thing. Okay, that's a good thing to do. And so now this is pretty well set up. So next steps are, actually going to save this so I don't lose that set right there. Save scene. So now the next step is open up Skeleton 5. So I was working with this earlier, so let's go back to pre. And the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to click on Model Clean. And the first thing that you do is you want to start, it really is an order, and I've mentioned this several times now. Just start with Model Clean. First thing is you're going to create a group that's called Geo. Essentially just took those objects and put it in a group called Geo. Okay. And then you're going to click on, do that. So if I click create, they're all selected, just notice that. And then I'm going to click the clean. Now we notice that it took the texture off, but if you click on the checker ball, it goes back on. And I don't know why I was having a hard time in the class. I think I was just kind of freaking out or something. Sorry about that. And so you can see it's still there. The material's still on the character. Everything's good. It's clean. So it's cleaned. It's got the geo. So everything's set up. So the next step is to create a scene. And what I want to do is just be really careful about my names And I'm going to show you what I'm doing with my names. It's starting to get already a little out of control, but just be careful with your names. So I'm going to do file save scene as. And I made this reference models folder, if you recall. So I did that last class, and I've already done it here. So I've made a folder inside of my scenes folder. It's called reference models. So I don't lose track of what I'm doing. These are the ones that are only for reference. And I've already kind of started again. So I did a ref01. Then I kind of just did a test just now just with ref02. So it's geo ref02. And then I started doing skeleton 5 saves, and you can see I'm doing skeleton 5 ref02, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm just reiterating or iterating on those, okay? So in this case, I'm going to just stick with the same naming convention, but I'm going to go to geo03. So this is my reference version. So if I want to change the textures or anything, I'll change them all here. I'll do all that change here, and then it should update on the skeleton 5 version. We'll test that when we're done. So just watch out with your names here. Okay, getting tons of emails today. So save that. So now we're good. So now the next thing is to click on new scene. So that's really the same as going to file, new scene at that point. And then now we're going to create our reference. So I'm using the reference 3 this time instead of reference 2, so you'll see these names will reflect that reference 3. Can't reiterate enough how much that was a problem for people. It seems pretty straightforward, but it's real easy, as you know, to just start losing track. Wait, which one was to which one? And I think the way I'm naming these is going to really help. Say reference, continue. So I kept getting this error again. It's in the script somewhere. Something's in position 1. I don't know. Create general preview button. I don't think it's a problem. So far it hasn't caused any issues. So just notice I'm getting that error. Maybe you get one, maybe you don't. So remember, the model comes in, you get a layer. We don't usually talk a lot about layers in our classes, but now we're starting to get layers, and so you'll want to start to watch out for this. I have found that the layers act a little bit funny. I've had some students really get into layers. I've found them to be just bothersome to a little bit just for the level of work that we're doing, but obviously this is a good time to start noticing that there are layers and how things are laid out here. This is the main button you want to look at. This is template, and this is how it's viewed. So this is a reference, so I can't select it when it's in R, and then when it's not R, I can select it. So template, reference, and then just a regular object. This, I believe, is visibility. I can't remember what P refers to. I'm going to keep it in template for now. And so that's kind of how it comes in. Sorry, I'm zooming all over the place. So just watch those. Main one is going to be the T version, right? That's what we're looking for, templates, and then you want to see it sometimes as well. So that's pre. That's what we did with pre. So I was basically cleaning the model. We which made the geo node, and then we saved the model before we did the new scene, and then we did the new scene, and then we referenced. And again, remember those little blue dots are reference nodes. If you're ever looking to edit or play around with those references, here's the reference editor. You can actually work with the reference editor here. I have found all of these referencing things to be a little bit persnickety, and I would not recommend messing around too much in here, but there is a way to manage references. Okay, so we'll get out of pre. So now it's built. And again, it's kind of just following just straight through order. So they're really good about keeping the orders. I know we have the dinosaur, and that probably is going to want to use the tail. I can't recall. Maybe the giraffe has a tail. I think most everyone else is basically bipedal. You can say I have a horse here. I don't know why, but I'm going to go to biped MA. Oh, there's someone else doing a bird too. They're really far along actually. So, oh, and here's actually dragon. So you might want to just grab the dragon one. Um, Probably the horse for the giraffe. Play around with this. Remember, this is going to be some. We're going to have some time here to mess with these. Don't get too stressed out. I know some of you aren't feeling that done with everything, and that's okay. At this point, just move forward and try to get the rigging going and just start testing a little bit. So I'm going to click on import. And here it is. The way to get it into position to start with is to use this little circle, and I consider that to be kind of like the all control. You are in a fit skeleton scenario, so it's a little bit different, but I'm just gonna scale this and just pick a basic size. Sorry, zooming all over the place. So we're just, let's not do it that way. Grab from the center, there we go. And usually what we're aiming for is the pelvis is kind of our guide usually for these types of things. So, maybe around there. I can always move it though. So if I want, I can aim for the shoulders. In this case, it's not that big a deal. You'll see some people, and I was talking about this last class, that I ended up with an angle. I think you can see this, that this leg actually is at an angle, and you're supposed to technically have that straight. But since it's coming in at an angle, I'm going to try not to overthink it, and I'm going to leave it. And like I said, this is kind of a test version, so we'll see what ends up happening. The big thing that once you get it in is just, we can come back here. If I want to add a tail, I can add a tail. I was playing around with adding a hand because I have 2 arms on my character, but I'll show you how I manage that in a moment. So I don't really need this fit anymore. I can go back to edit now. There's this fit mode that you might want to consider using. And if you forget, it's okay. You can also manually update now. And fit mode is the rotation axis of a joint. I'm just going to click on fit mode. So when you have fit mode on, it just will auto rotate everything and make sure all the joints are pointed in the right direction. So you don't really have to think about it while you're going. So the basic setup is, remember we can select a joint. So like to me, the pelvis is too high. So is also the hip. But if I go and move this thing, it's going to move everything, and I don't really want to do that. So remember, if you tap the key D as in delta, then you can move these individually. And so I'm going to pull this pelvis down about, I'll put it kind of right there. And there are some better positions for these. I'm not going to get too into it, but I think that's about where I had the other one. And then I was talking about how you want to kind of picture how the leg the leg is actually kind of a diagonal bend a little bit. It does kind of bend at a horizontal, but also slightly diagonally as well. In other words, try to think of it going like that. The other thing is just try to keep it centered on the body. I wouldn't want to move this thing, so I just moved that straight down, which kept that orientation to the angle that's already there. Sorry, that was the wrong kind of move. I want that with D. Then moved it down. If I start doing this, I'm going to get that angle, and that's that kind of angle you want to avoid. Okay, so I would use just the regular move and pull it around like that. Don't overthink it. Just get it. I think the more important thing is the where it is this way on the legs. That's the main issue, up and down to me. Pelvis looks pretty good. I think, I think somewhere around in here, kind of belly button to, you don't want to be down here, don't want to be up there. I think that's probably pretty good, right about at that belt. Let's take a look at the foot now. Also, I noticed that the whole character was a little bit forward, so I can grab the hip area. Actually really feel like everything. I'm going to take the whole entire pelvis Just pull the whole thing back. And what we're aiming for is to try and get everything centered, as much centered as possible. Like every joint, you want it as centered in the character as possible. So with the foot, feels like the foot, the ankle, maybe I want a little bit more up here. So I'm just going to grab the foot and pull it up there. The heel actually looks like it's in a pretty good position. You know, you want that thing to be where you're going to actually contact the floor. So that to me is the contact. It's a weird foot. It's not very defined. Same with the toe. You want to grab that toe and you want to get that toe into a position that we could even bring this back a little bit. Maybe get a little more foot bend on that. And then bring the toe forward. And again, you're kind of trying to pick that point where it actually rotates from. So when you peel off your toe, you're going to peel off this point. These other two positions right here, these are the these positions are like where you rotate on the inside and outside of your foot. So if I want to bring those out again, you're kind of picking where you'll rotate, so the point at which you contact the floor right there. It's pretty good. Remember, take a look at your knee. It's probably not going to be in the right spot. So remember, tap D so that you don't move everything. You're just going to move your knee. Just get your knee into position. Come back a little bit, maybe. Trying to keep things, keep that bend, but it's actually, move that back just a little bit. Just to keep that bend going. And that's the bottom, so that looks pretty good. So let's start looking at the top now. Click on the clavicle here and pull the whole shoulder back. And move it up. I'm going to grab the shoulder and move it down. Pull it in. It's better there. It looks pretty good, but I don't think, let's take a look at it from the top here. Kind of hard to see with the other hand there, but let's about right there, centered on the wrist. So that's going to be the wrist joint. Grab that elbow again, tap D. Just come back about right there. I think that's the elbow. I might be wrong on that one, but I think that's the elbow. And now it's just the fingers, and this obviously is where this takes probably the longest time is the fingers, so bear with me here. I'm just gonna move them and not really talk so I go a little faster. Remember, you can rotate. So sometimes maybe just getting them into position is better. I don't have a really clearly defined knuckles either, which makes it a little more difficult. There's also really weird roundy fingers, like this hand didn't get very completed model-wise. Don't forget to rotate. You can totally do that. So aside from scale, well, I guess you could scale a joint as long as you make sure it's in the X. As long as you scale in the direction of the joint. I don't think it's a problem, but really there's no need if you can move and rotate. So I'm just gonna try and keep these equal. And centered. They're going to be off a little bit. from the front. Let's do that in a moment. Counting the times I've done this with the class, this is literally about maybe, oh, there's my cat, literally about maybe the 5th or 6th time I've done this. What do you want? That's a good example. If you see that little wire, you see that thing changing, that's the fit mode when I move it. Do you see how it auto rotates? It's just maintaining the general rotation that the joints should make when they rotate. It's something we don't really worry about in our classes, but even when we were doing that Superman, technically should have been worrying about it, but I found that for our classes it doesn't really, you don't really need to. Just going to kind of try to keep that straight. Oh no. Oh. My cat just jumped on the computer. I hope he didn't do any. What? Oh, God, he hit like every button on the. Okay. All right. Hopefully that didn't cause any trouble. Okay. All right. Now cat in my lap. All right. So looking at it, you can see from perspective, you can see it's off. So we're going to go through now and take a look at it from the front view. Is a good view to start with. I find that it's a little bit better to leave the perspective open because it can be hard to check which finger is that. So I'm actually going to start on the pinky. You can see it's pretty low. So I'm just going to pull that up. And if you zoom in, you can almost see it. Let's close that so we get a little more space. There we go. You can see the edge of the pinky right there. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to just rotate it. Looks good. I'm going to grab the next finger. I'm going to move it up. And they're about, I didn't really make a cup to my hands, so they're almost smack dab right on each other. A little bit of rotation. Maybe drop that down just a little bit. Next one. A bit of rotation. No. Yeah, just stay there. Yeah. Okay, there we go. A little rotation on that. Now, thumb is a little bit trickier to see from the front. You kind of see it, that it's kind of hanging down. I mean, I can grab this one and pretty easily line that up, but I think it's going to be better from the side. So I'll just look at it from the side. We can do things like, remember, we can snap. So if we want to get this joint chain to be really straight, I can even, I can make sure I have the y-axis selected and just hold V and snap. Or maybe not. Did this earlier and it was fine, but let's not worry about that. I don't know why that's happening. There we go. I don't know why that first one didn't want to snap, but it's not necessary. I mean, I found that you don't have to really worry about it too much. It really works pretty well like that. So that's my hand. So now let's take a look at the body. So I found that you just really kind of want to try to keep these things a little bit even. That's sort of the main deal. So, I try to kind of, that's my idea. I could be wrong about that. We do want them centered in the body. So I'm going to just kind of pull that forward. Pull that one forward. Um, this is the neck. Yeah, so I'm tap D, and I'm just going to get this into the neck area. So this is going to be the base of the neck, like that. That looks pretty good right there. This is going to be the head joint. So this is where the head rotates from. So you usually that's actually kind of up in the ear, but there's no real ear here. So you wouldn't want it right here necessarily. I'm going to place it about right there. That looks pretty good to me. I'll grab that head end and just kind of push it up to the head end. Now these here are the jaw. So usually the jaw goes to the back of the ear as well. So, people tend to want to put this here, but it's actually starting here. You're rotating from back here maybe. And then this is the end of the jaws where it rotates from. So, really it's the lower part of the lip moves. I'm just going to kind of split the difference and hit about here. You'll notice that it doesn't actually even connect. You have to do some fancy weight painting for the mouth where you have to paint this whole section to that joint. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. And then lastly, the eye, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit last time. The eye, let's go to the side view because the side view is a little bit easier to do this from. Just gonna aim. Oh God, no, he's falling off. Okay, hold on. All right, come on. Go on. Sorry about that. Cat's gone. Okay. So if I want to get that right onto the center of the eye, and I'm not going to be super careful. You'll see that if that's even just slightly off, it'll cause the eye to rotate a little bit awkwardly. So do want this perfect, but like I said, this is our first one, so getting it perfect, there's a lot of different ways. Some people do like some fancy locators and things like that. These eyes aren't actually pointed straight, so they're actually angled, which is maybe probably a bad idea in terms of laying it out. Oh my God, now the dog's here. So let's not worry about it too much. I mean, the idea is that you want this part of the eye to be as centered in the eye as possible, and then you want this front part here as centered in the eye as possible. So I'm just going to come out, and you can see that it's off. So you don't want to do something like this where you angle it. That's bad. Okay, we don't want that. We'll grab the back part of the eye and just pull it over. And really, when you look at the front view, because there's an angle, it's actually directly in the center like that, right? Between these 2 points. I'm going to guess there. I'm actually going to create an angle. I didn't do this on the last one, but I'm going to do it here. And then this is the tip. This is the very tip of it. And we'll say, okay, well, this is the tip right there. Honestly, that might come to bite me. In most tutorials, I'll say keep these totally straight with each other. So I probably should go back and update my eyes so it's pointing in the right direction. That's going to be close enough for me, though, for this particular project. Looks like I brought that head a little bit high. Now I can see. Let's drop that down. And that's the layout. That looks pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about it. The only thing left really is just to maybe try to get another arm for the character. So what I ended up doing is instead of creating a new joints using the add joints, I just ended up duplicating. I just said edit, duplicate. And it does give me an error. More than one object matches name shoulder. That's why. Because I duplicated it. I don't know if I can go in there and change that. It's right there. It says shoulder. Let's change it. Let's see what it says if I do lower, or just I'll do actually, let's do that. I'll select this scapula 1. Scapula. Okay, so we'll do we'll do try modify prefix hierarchy name. I didn't do this in my example, my test, so hopefully this doesn't totally mess things up. Actually, let's do quick save scene as. Just probably should have done that before. So I'm using ref 3 right now, so I'm just going to click on that and then grab ref 3. So you can see my naming convention now. It's going to get a little bit tough, but my naming convention is I'm using skeleton 5. That's what this one is. This means it's skeleton 5. I'm actually, the reference is number 3, and this version or iteration is 1. Okay, now let's try that. I'll do lower. Didn't change that name right there, but where it says shoulder right there, but it did change all the others. The joint names anyway. So hopefully that doesn't screw anything up, and we'll see. So just last little bits, just get that. So the cool thing is now those hands are kind of in position. I don't have to really rethink that. Let's pull that shoulder a little bit forward, right about there. Looks good, get it into position. I'm not going to worry too much about where the scapula is. I mean, I could play around with it with D. I'm assuming I'm going to want it to work similarly to the top. So I'm just going to kind of keep the same angle. It's attached where it was. I mean, I'm just getting kind of lucky here, you know. It just seemed to work out for me. Let's grab that hand now. I'm in D, so let's take D out. I'm going to come back to there a little bit. It's a little bit hard to get the angle on it, but I think the elbow actually looks like it's in a pretty good position, actually. I don't know if I need to move that. If I do, I will come back on it. It does feel a little short. Yeah, it is. So I'll tap D on that and just come. You know, honestly, I feel like that's probably the better angle. I think that's the elbow, but I'll just put it in the middle. It's kind of a bad place to bend, but oh, I know why, because I did that. I did that modeling with Mudbox is what's going on. So now these are all in the wrong position, so just bear with me while I get them positioned and scaled. Well, not scaled, but just changed size. In perspective, so it's a little bit challenging to get this just right. I think if I do it from the top, let's just see. I guess it's doable. Remember to kind of work your way, not from the tips. If you don't work from the tips, if you work from the tips rather, it kind of messes you up because then you're always going back and forth. So pick the innermost joint and work with it first, and then work your way back out to the tip. I'm just trying to make kind of an even. Cool. Okay. So that looks pretty good. And I think what you'll find is that it'll actually rig fairly well once we do the other part. So I'm going to do one more save. Save scene as, this is 0, 1. We'll call it 0, 2. Say OK. Continue. Continue. All right. Awesome. So I think that covers everything. So eyes are in place, the jaw's in place, the head, I got 2 arms. Obviously, if I was gonna make a tail, I could go to that fit one more time and add a tail, so I could import a tail. You can see that it comes in already attached. It'll just come up like that. It comes in a weird position because it was so small when it first started, right? You can see it gives it names, and I can pull those out and do all that if I want. So, you know, these work, and you can do that. Although I think most of you that are doing tails like that are actually going to just use the dragon setup or something like that. It still leaves that tail section there. Do you see that? So I'm actually going to just open the second version where I was. And just don't save. There we go. Still getting that error. All right, so looks pretty good. Let's do the build now. So build. There's just only one thing. And if I ever want to come back and rework with this, I can redo the building, but I have to first build it. So let's do build. This video is getting long. Perfect. So the cool thing that you'll see is that I got the clavicles and I actually have IK control. So the last time I did this, I didn't have IK control because I built them separate. So by duplicating, I got that IK control. Not sure about setting these up so you get IK control by just building your own joints. They seem to only be FK, which is not bad, but it's cool. It'll be cool to be able to control the hands and everything and the arms with IK. The one thing that didn't come across with this method is I get a finger control here, but I didn't get one here, so that's kind of a bummer. So I have to manually manage all these fingers down here. So that's something to look into maybe. Cool. So it looks great. It's all set up. Let's talk about binding now. So remember, if I want to toggle fit, I can click on that. I can toggle the fit and go back to the fit section. It'll go back to half the character. I can reposition any joint I want, do anything in terms of positions or that kind of work, and then just rebuild again, and it'll come right back and make all the curves again. Everything will come back. So it's pretty awesome that way. One thing I can go in really quickly and just, I'll go to my front view here. These are going to be stuck inside the character, so I'm just going to use my move tool and just pull this out. Just use that. Just going to line up with that curve. Do the same thing with this side. Just so they're sticking out of the character, so when I go to work with it, I can see them. Just a couple others that are stuck in there, like the neck control. I think the FK neck control is kind of small, so it's hard to see. So, you know, if you're having a hard time with these, we talked about this briefly in the class, that I think Josh was saying that he was just moving and messing around with these to his heart's content. I'm not going to move that one right now. I'll just leave it for now. So he said that was really flexible, and so just go ahead and change those. Maybe a good idea to kind of get a little bit further ahead and see what you want to change before you make too many decisions that way. I just know I would definitely want to see those clavicles, or they're calling them scapulas in this case. Okay, so the next thing is deform. So if you look at deform, this is the first set. Your select objects to deform, then set deform, and then set smooth bind options. So I'm going to do this a little bit different because I actually know that the right eye and the left eye are going to bind in a way that doesn't work. So you might want to just reconsider, or you can. I ended up binding them all together, and then I had to unbind my eyes and then redo the binding specifically. So I found actually this has been the case since I first started using Skeleton 5. So just watch out for this. I'm just going to actually just straight up just knowing that's going to happen, I'm just going to grab the body. Um, those of you that have extra pieces and stuff like that, we'll have to rethink this. We haven't even cut the head off yet for blend shapes, so don't remember we're gonna be doing some changes. So I'm gonna cut this head off and then do blend shapes and then do this whole thing one more time. So um, let's be aware of that. I'm actually hoping to do that on the reference model, and I'm hoping that I don't have to redo all the joints and everything, but we'll see how that goes. So model selected. When you're in template mode, it'll look pink like that or peach. I'm going to select my deform joints. I'm going to set smooth bind, and I'm just going to use the basic binds. I'm not going to worry about it, but sometimes changing these up, we don't talk about this in the other class, but heat map for some people actually works a lot better. Don't overthink it right now. Just do the default. We'll do the closest distance, and we'll do bind skin. Let me show you one other setup that's kind of cool for that. So just a quick kind of way to deal with those things. So now if I select a portion, the character is going to update. So we're looking good. So we know that's all good. So it's actually bound. But what would be really nice is to be able to work with the eyes. And so what I found works better is, and I don't know why you can't just do it all at once, but it doesn't work. So I usually just click on one of the eyes, and then I just get a little bit close, and then I select the joint for that particular eye, and then I just do another bind, just to bind skin like that. Do the other eye, and just zoom in, grab that joint, and then just over the bind skin. And now you'll notice that if I grab this now, let's go shaded solid. I can't see it, so oops. There we go. So now if I move this, you'll see the eyes following along. It's pretty awesome. Of course, you got these little interior pieces here, so you can grab these and we can move it one eye individually, which is kind of cool too. So there's some good setups there. So I'm going to do one more save scene as. Call this 3. And now what I noticed, I'm going to just set all of these to IK instead of FK. So remember when you select these little plus signs, you can go to the blend, and remember it seems like you should go 0 to 1, but in this case it's 0 to 10. So if we're at 10, we go full IK. If we're at 0, we're full FK. And what I noticed was that if I grab this, I'm going to get a pretty intense distortion on the body. Maybe not too bad. I mean, let's take a look at that. Okay, so just notice that, all right? So it looks good. Let's put it back. So I'm going to show you one quick way, and this won't work for everyone, but this is a quick way to deal with weights. Let's just quickly grab the head real quick and see if we have any rotational issues. Okay, do you see that? So do you see these little pieces here not coming along? Okay, let's do, I'm going to show you this one weighting method, okay? So when you look over here, these deforms, there's actually these different options for ways to create weights, okay? And this one's actually really powerful, this skin cage one. It works fairly well. It's a little hard to work with. Option 3 is this kind of like sub wrap thing. So there's a lot of different options for how to do this. Skin loops is a different way that they do this, and they actually have all these options. But this one's pretty awesome. It's called Delta Mush. And it takes a little bit of time, so just notice this. So select skinned objects. So we'll start with the body. And then it says, if you're ever having a trouble with this, you can always click on these little question marks and it'll open up. It says, it'll give you a little bit of information about what you're doing. Not really much, it just says for better results, for using hardened skin weights first. Makes sense. So most of these things in Skeleton 5 are in order. So, I'm just going to click on hardened weights. You'll see it's going to take a little while. So you'll see down here. So don't panic. It takes a little bit of time. Okay, so the weights just got hardened. I honestly don't know what hardened means. And then you just apply delta mush, and you'd think this would take a really long time, but it just is really quick. And there we go, delta mush applied. So the hardening of the weights is what takes a long time on this. So let's grab that hand one more time and let's move it. I don't think it looks that much better, but it looks a little bit better. You know, it's not as crushed. See that? It moves, but it's not crushed, right? And so I think it does look a little bit better. And it's just a really quick fix for most of the problems. Let's grab that head curve one more time and do a rotation there. Still having a problem with those little pieces there. So, you know, I might need to do something with those little bits. But, you know, I found that this actually worked pretty well for most parts of this thing. I wonder if, let's go wireframe and see if, let me turn off those things that are curves. This is actually the jaw right here. Let's see if it, no, it doesn't look like anything. So jaw isn't even really connected to anything. Maybe the neck. It's grabbing something down here. So I'll need to go back in and paint some weights. And when we're doing the weights, you know, you need to make this thing selectable. And of course, paint skin weights. There we are. And, you know, there's all your stuff, right? And so, you know, your hip or whatever, and it's going to show all those things. So let's not get into that right now. I'm going to close that. See, there we go. Maybe temper. Sorry, just got a note. Okay, so don't get caught up in the weights right now. You know we got to do the blend weights or our blending shapes and stuff like that. So just let that little bit go. If you're really having a hard time with it, you know, I think the better way to do the weights is to remember vertices, select out that whole chunk, and window, general editor, component editor, smooth skins. We want the head, right? And basically you want the first one, and then there's a couple in here that are going to be underweighted, right? There's one right there, right? Set that to 1. Close that off. And to me, I wouldn't do any more than that. Like that would be the maximum amount of effort that I would put into that. Let's grab that curve one more time. Do a rotate. There you go. Done. So I'm gonna do one more save. Save scene as 4. Cool. So that's saved now. So remember, if we look at the texture, you know, here's my texture. This is what it looks like. This is saved. I just saved it. So let me open up that reference one more time. Open scene. I'm going to go to ref 3 because that's what I'm using. I don't need to save that because I just saved it. Just going to click on that eye and go to my attribute editor and just go, I have an eye material there. And I'm basically just running a ramp on there. It's a circular ramp. You know, it's just, if you go to the material and, you know, I can pick something like that, you know, and it's just a ramp. They call, you know, a lot of you think of that as a gradient. It's just of a circular type, and I can get to that right there. And so, you know, if I move that, right, I can make that like that. If I click in here, I can add a color. So say maybe make this like a cyan, a little cyan ring, like that. And maybe I'll click here and this you get some red in there. And then if you pull that up, you can start to see it present itself a little bit more. Go this way. Like that better, like we're just peeking through the red like that, so it's like kind of blurry eyed. That's good. Okay, and so then I'm going to say, sorry, I'm zoomed in. I'm going to save this. I'm going to save over this. I'm going to save scene just right over the old one. Okay, say okay. So now it's saved. Okay, so I'm going to go back to open scene, and I'm going to open up. This is the reference 3, number 4. So this is my 4th iteration. So I'm going to say okay. Continue. Continue. And look at that weird error, so we're not too worried about it. And I'm just going to turn on my checkerboard so I can see it. And you can see that it updated just like we expected, right? So the change was made in the reference, not here, right? So this is going to update whenever I do anything to the model as a reference. It's going to update here because it's referenced, right? So that's basically it. You know, obviously there's a ton of stuff in here. A lot of these are actually for, you know, there are custom controllers. You know, there's a lot of stuff in here. I don't know, nearly half of it. There's some pretty awesome stuff here, obviously, but let's not overthink it. Okay, I think that what I've shown you right here is definitely enough to deal with for right now, and yeah, so I'm gonna save this up and send it to you guys right now, and I'll see you tomorrow or whenever. Okay.